A quick question for you. It's easy. Let's just suppose that you went trick-or-treating, or your parents put together a bag for you, something like that, a little treat, and every place you went, they only gave you Snickers bars. So you ended up with a bag full of Snickers bars. How many would think that was a good thing? Not too many. Okay, well, no, that doesn't surprise me at all, because if you like Snickers bars, that would be an amazing thing, right? But if you don't like Snickers, it'd be like, yeah, I didn't want this, right? Well, I just think it's the same thing. Actually, think of Christmas. I actually know a guy who one year, teenage boy, for Christmas, he got a sports car for Christmas. Amazing car. And later that year, he's talking to his best friend, and he told his best friend, I didn't get what I wanted for Christmas. And his friend looked at him and was like, what could you possibly want more than this car? And the kid said to his friend, he said, I wanted a toy. He said, I just wanted like maybe a Lego plane I could put together, fly around my room, pretending I was flying around the world. See, the point here is that we're all different. So those of you that like Snickers, you're great people. And those of you that like other candy, that's wonderful too. And people, when people like different Christmas presents, things like that. That just makes us all wonderful and different. So if you are you figure like, well, everybody seems to like this, but I don't, that doesn't make you any less of a wonderful person. And it's good to keep in mind that not everybody likes the same things you do. Okay? That simple lesson helps you get along with people if you remember that, all right? All right. Hey, thanks for being here. We always enjoy having you with us. Jesus asked Bartimaeus what might appear to you to be a silly question. What do you want me to do for you? I suspect none of the adults here, I suspect you guys weren't at all surprised that about a point of like, well, we all like different candy. Or we all have different preferences when it comes to Christmas presents. That's not a surprise. But isn't Jesus' question rather surprising? I mean, doesn't everybody who's blind want to see? Doesn't that just make intuitive sense? Or would that be true? And wouldn't that be true of anybody who had a handicap? Any kind of handicap. Wouldn't you think that given the chance, they would want to have that handicap removed? Some of you who are older will remember a time when if you were a single person, especially a woman, in their late 20s, maybe into your 30s, you would expect that if Jesus had said to them, hey, what can I do for you? You would have expected that they would have said, well, I'm looking for a husband or a wife. I need to get married. That's what I need for you to help me with. Or childless couples. We would think that, of course, doesn't every married couple want children? Or homeless people. Don't we all think that homeless people, they don't want to be on the street, they want to get off the street? None of that, I think, is true. I just don't think it is. If you're interested in just a little bit of background of where we get this from, where we get this sense that we know what everybody else wants, it comes from Plato. Greek philosopher back in the 300-400 BC era, a couple hundred years before Jesus was born. Let me just see if I can explain it to you with a simple example. Every person in here, child to the oldest one amongst us, knows that those objects right over there are chairs. But isn't that interesting? Because they are all different. They're very different, actually. They look quite different from each other. But nobody here is going to argue that they're not all chairs. How did you do that? How do you know that they're all chairs? Why isn't one a chair and two others something else? It seems like a weird question, but these are the sort of things that professional philosophers think about. And Plato came up with this really interesting idea. He thought that there was a perfect chair, if you will, a model chair, an ideal chair in the heavens someplace. He called it the world of forms. And he thought that all of us, our souls, started in that same realm. And so we sort of had experienced this world of forms. We'd experienced all these perfect things. And so it's because that we somehow innately have this idea of a chair that we can look at that and go, oh yeah, they're all chairs. And it's simple. And that kind of it sounds like an odd thing, but it's quite a well-known philosophy that lots of people embrace. But the point is that somehow we do that same thing with humanity. We get this sense in our head that, oh yeah, I know what an ideal human would want. Or to put it differently, I know what a human would want in order to be whole. And so if you're blind, of course, you're going to want to see. But I don't think it's true. I think it's just like the candy. Not everybody likes Snickers. I try not to hold that against them. But the Snickers are great. Very expensive these days, by the way. But because I have known homeless people. You may not believe this, but I have known homeless people that if you said to them, here are the keys to an apartment, the rent is paid for, will always be paid for, the utilities will always be paid for, and there will always be food in that apartment for you, here are the keys. And they'll look at you and say, hey, thanks. That's nice of you to do that, but you should do that for somebody else. I don't want that. In my 30s and 40s, many of you know I went to seminary later in life, so in my 30s and 40s, I'm a single guy. There were a lot of people that thought I was looking for Miss Right. They just assumed that that was what I was looking for. But in that time of my life, I was already convinced that the Lord wasn't interested in me getting married. He had other things He wanted me to do at that stage in my life for which marriage didn't fit. And so it wasn't what I should have done. In other words, I didn't need to get married to be whole. The diocese operates 2 schools for developmentally handicapped kids. They're called Morning Star schools. One was at my last parish. And you would think that if Jesus showed up to the parents of these kids and said, hey, what would you like me to do for you? That the parents might quickly say, oh, could you heal my child? But I can assure you that thought would probably never have come into their mind, because they didn't think of their child as sick. Yeah, their child maybe had Down syndrome, but that didn't make them sick. That was just part of who they were. They were a beloved child of God, and yeah, some extra challenges in raising them perhaps, but they were fine. I don't know that they would have asked Jesus to do anything for their children that way. See, each of us has an idea for ourselves of what would make us whole. And it's just not the same as it is for the people around you. And it's worth considering. It is worth considering if Jesus were to ask you and I, what would you like me to do for you? It is really worth considering what that answer might be. What would you say to Jesus? Because I think that's why Jesus asked that question of Bartimaeus. I don't think He wanted to assume that He knew what Bartimaeus wanted. I think He was willing to ask. And that's the other lesson for us out of that question. Jesus asked. Should we ask? Do we not so often in our dealings with other people, we just assume that we know what it is they want? And I just don't think we have that knowledge. Oh, sure, we might know. I mean, we might make a lucky guess or something like that, but we probably don't know, or we're not as accurate as we think. And so it's worth considering this. In what way can I take this question that Jesus uses with Bartimaeus and incorporate it into my life? In what way can I ask people, other people, friends, family, whoever it is, what can I do for you? What do you need me to do for you, rather than assuming? 'Cause I don't know if you are, how your imagination is, but I was sort of imagining this scene going a little differently. Because it's true, Bartimaeus gives Jesus the answer we all expected. I want to see. But he didn't have to give that answer. Picture this. Jesus calls Bartimaeus over, and he jumps up, and they take him to Jesus. And Jesus says to him, "What would you like me to do for you?" And Bartimaeus pauses for a moment, and he says, "Do you know, I hear things that hardly anybody else hears. Because I can't see, my hearing is so much better. And one of the things that I hear is the birds singing. Even when it's busy on the street, I can still hear the birds chirping and singing. Jesus, what I would like you to do, I would like to be able to sing. Could you give me a voice that would allow me to sing so that I could sing with the birds and sing in harmony with the birds?" And Jesus, I think, would have smiled at him and looked at him and said, "Your faith has saved you." And then Bartimaeus would have reached out to somebody who was following Jesus, and he would have used that person to help him as he followed along with Jesus. But I can picture then Bartimaeus lifting up his voice, his new voice, his beautiful voice, singing with the birds and glorifying God.